The Nintendo Virtual Boy, a well-known necessity for gracious living.
As highlighted in my last upload, as many of you will be familiar with, Nintendo's strange virtual reality headset is often considered one of their most bizarre business blunders. The odd 32-bit tabletop portable video game console lives in infamy for its poor sales, strange form factor, and even more bizarre graphical display.
All of this is enough to give anyone a headache.
The Virtual Boy's shortcomings were enough to lead the hardware to have abysmal sales, further compounded by the fact that Nintendo would discontinue their red and black stereoscopic 3D capable device after just 1 year on the market. The Virtual Boy's extremely short lifespan would lead to a thin library of just 22 games, meaning that many planned games for such a device would end up being cancelled altogether. A few days ago, we looked at one of these when we examined the story of the unreleased Virtual Boy Super Mario Bros. Game. This title had a playable demo available at the 1995 Winter Consumer Electronics Show. Today, we will look at the history of the even more mysterious Lost Mario game that was scheduled for release on the hardware at one point. So, let's discuss everything we know about this missing piece of gaming history. So, with all of that said,
I am Lady Decade, and this is the story of the unreleased Virtual Boy Mario Kart game.
In 1995, around the time of the Virtual Boy's release, the Mario Kart franchise was still in its infancy and far from the gaming juggernaut that the spin-off series is considered today. Back then, only one Mario Kart game existed thus far, and it was considered a cool, funny, gimmicky title rather than something legendary like this series is now. Super Mario Kart, released back in 1992 and produced by Shigeru Miyamoto himself, was the result of an end goal of creating a racing game capable of displaying two players on the same game screen at once. Masato Kimura, who worked on F-Zero, would serve as the title's lead programmer for Super Mario Kart, so there were plenty of good ingredients going in to pull this off. Perhaps this maiden entry is most interesting because it was not intended to be a Mario game, but more of a generic kart racer. The decision to add Mario and friends into the mix was not decided upon until several months into development, but experimenting with adding the pesky plumber to a kart looked better than their previous designs, so Mario Kart was born. Aside from the iconic characters making the game memorable, Mode 7 graphics, as seen previously in F-Zero, also made the title look great for its time. The Super Nintendo's texture mapping allows a plane to be rotated and scaled freely, achieving a pseudo three-dimensional appearance. Many state that seeing such a graphical style present on a Nintendo home console for the first time was breathtaking.
So overall, an excellent debut for the Mario Kart series.
When we consider Mario Kart's pseudo 3D appearance as one of the game's defining features, I guess it made huge sense to want to create a Mario Kart game for the Virtual Boy. After all, this was hardware promoted around the gimmick of offering stereoscopic 3D, so therefore Mode 7, like graphical effects in a Mario Kart game viewed through the goggles from hell, would have been right up the Virtual Boy's marketing alley. Sadly, and quite obviously, bearing in mind that it is nowhere to be seen, plans for a Mario Kart game would be scrapped, with consumers not even knowing that a Mario Kart was proposed until 5 years after the Virtual Boy's demise in the year 2000. Its cancellation would have likely been down to poor sales. Still, as highlighted in my previous upload, the games featuring key Nintendo IPs were ruled out fairly early, due to an executive order from Nintendo President Hiroshi Yamauchi. Yamauchi requested that key franchises need to be de-emphasized on the hardware as much as possible to protect them for the Nintendo 64's launch. Mario Kart for Virtual Boy would be referenced in the August 2000 issue of the German gaming magazine known as The Big N, where they would show Mario Kart on a list of Virtual Boy games that they knew were at one point in development.
So, end of the story, right? Wrong.
In my last upload, I highlighted how one internet user painfully recreated the Virtual Boy Mario Land demo on a display at the 1995 Winter Consumer Electronics Show back in the day. But reproducing one thing is entirely different from trying to recreate something none of us have ever seen. However, despite this, someone was up for the challenge. This would result in a cool scenario that would unfold in 2008. Essentially, a homebrew video game developer who goes by the internet username DogP would finally make a playable Mario Kart Virtual Boy game a reality. A working demo of Mario Kart for Virtual Boy would be created after DogP entered the 2008 PvB coding competition hosted on the Planet Virtual Boy forums. Those who downloaded and played the demo were instantly impressed with what was on offer. The Mario Kart Virtual Cup was inspired by the original Super Mario Kart game and the later Mario Kart Super Circuit game, which was developed and published for the Game Boy Advance. For example, the title screen for this Virtual Boy demo is similar to what can be found on the GBA, albeit red and black. Only the game's time trial mode functions, but it still gives a fantastic look at what an official Mario Kart Virtual Boy game had the potential to look like. The game's drivers have the same animations as those in Super Mario Kart. However, sadly, their animations seem to glitch out whenever they turn corners. Impressively, there are a few different tracks that can be tried out, and even some rudimentary background music recreating the Mario Circuit theme that can be found within the original Super Mario Kart.
Which is an awesome touch.
By looking at this Virtual Boy homebrew ROM, we can see that Mario Kart on the Virtual Boy would have been more than possible, but the question is, could such a release have hurt the franchise or diluted it like Yamauchi was worried about? Personally, I think that this is kind of doubtful as to whether Mario Kart for the Virtual Boy saw a release or not. I don't feel it would have taken away from how impressive Mario Kart 64 would have looked when it eventually hit the market shortly after. I feel that the Virtual Boy and Nintendo 64 were too different for either of them to negatively affect the other one's existence. But I would be curious to hear about what you have to say on such a matter in the comment section. As for DogP's awesome looking demo, as one may have already guessed, the effort was impressive enough for them to easily win the 2008 Virtual Boy coding competition, with his effort getting 34% of the votes that year. The demo can even be experienced using real Virtual Boy hardware on devices such as the Flash Boy Plus, which lets Virtual Boy owners play the system's rich homebrew library on their goggles of doom, which is always lovely. It's so cool to see that a little community in the far corner of the internet continues to keep the spirit of the Virtual Boy alive. They breathe new life into video games that have become so lost to time that no official footage is available for any gameplay footage. Even as of 2022, Planet Virtual Boy continues to be updated with new homebrew games being released to this day. So while the official port was dropped for the hardware as early as 1996, 26 years later, new games are still being played. Anyway, if you enjoyed learning about a lost Mario Kart game and the interesting homebrew game that was inspired by it, you may want to subscribe and check out my video on the Virtual Boy Mario Land game. So click the annotation now. Peace.